What is going on, everybody? It's the first. We're back again for NXT 2018 review, as we're going to look over the last 12 months of NXT and go over my 10 great matches of this year. This is going to be from the takeover to NXT tapings. There was so much happened this year that NXT just showed you again, as we've known for since 2014, that this is the best brand in WWE, and it's just so hard to fathom that we get this on a weekly basis and of course every few months in takeovers, while the main roster just gives us shit, and it's hard to believe that these are the same company. It's just really hard to believe, and just makes you want to commend Triple H for the job that he does, even if his stars do not come up to the main roster and get to have the same benefits that they did down in NXT. This is just another testament to Triple H of how good he is, and makes you wonder what the WWE is going to look like when he takes over in a few years, if not next year. We're going to talk about my top 10 matches right now. I have a list of them right here. Number 10 was the War Games match, as it was the second War Games of the NXT brand. Remember last year at NXT TakeOver War Games 1, we had a 3v3v3 team format. This year was more traditional. If you look back on last year's War Games match, it was a lot more high octane, fast paced. Of course, there was only three buzzards instead of like every other, like there was 3 entrants instead of having to wait for 6 entrants to come in. Of course, going into that match, Pete Dunne was injured, and if you didn't know that at the beginning, you were wondering why Bobby Fish locked him in to keep him away. Unfortunately, with the match that they had, you had to have Pete Dunne join the match to be able to have the match officially start. It did seem to drag for a good bit during it just seemed like they could have cut maybe 5 to 10 minutes from that match, and it would probably be higher up on this list. War Games, of course, is always a fun match. I mean, it's not. There's no way they're gonna be like Triple H is gonna fuck up a War Games match as bad as WCW did the last time they did War Games and killed the concept until last year. Number 9 is the 6-man ladder match from NXT TakeOver New Orleans between Lars Sullivan, Ricochet, beat Adam Cole, Velveteen Dream, EC3, and Killian Dane. This, of course, would be Killian Dane's last match in NXT before he and the rest of Sanity would be moved up to the main roster. This was a hell of a match, and the second match to be granted the coveted 5-star rating. We will have other matches from that 5-star rating on this show, on this video later on. But this had just thrills, chills. This had great spots all over the place. Killian Dane and Lars Sullivan's played a game of one-upmanship. Who can crash who into ladders more devastatingly? You had Ricochet showing off his what he can do, giving us glimpses of his greatness. Velveteen Dream with a purple rainmaker off the top of a ladder onto Lars Sullivan, and in the end, Adam Cole surprisingly won the match and took home the North American Championship and held it for a good while. Number 8 is Ricochet versus Pete Dunne, champion versus champion, title for title. This happened, I believe, 2 months ago, in which we had Ricochet and Pete Dunne put both of their titles on the line. This match was just showed that, yes, they could do spots, and you can call Ricochet a spot monkey if you want to, but when it comes down to it, he can give you a 5-star match. This looked like this was building up to be another NXT taping 5-star match until the ending. The ending does take away from it. If this match would have had a decisive winner, this would be a top 5 match, no doubt about it. But of course, the Undisputed Era coming in to ruin this match, and of course, this was the build towards War Games, only gives this the number 8 spot. Number 7 is the Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain from NXT TV. 2 weeks after I believe this was in July 10th or something of 2018, where we had Undisputed Era getting their rematch for the NXT Tag Team titles, in which they ended up winning this match. This match told the story of Trent Seven's knee being compromised as he fell. He dropped his knee onto the ring steps. The Undisputed Era attacked that. Tyler Bate tagged in for a little bit of offense, until Trent Seven's mistake foolishly tagged back in, and Undisputed Era just destroyed and dissected his knee until Tyler Bate just could not hold it in anymore and threw in the towel. Dave Meltzer gave it a 5-star rating. This was the shock of the 5-star ratings this year. Number 6 is Johnny Gargano versus Andrade Cien, not versus Andrade Cien Almas, that's later on. Versus Tommaso Ciampa, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4. This was a last man standing match. This was supposed to be a triple threat match with Aleister Black, which probably still would have landed on this list with this match. This match was the weaker of the three, in my opinion. It was like when you had the greatness of the 5-star match of these two at NXT TakeOver New Orleans, but they tried to top themselves, but they really couldn't top themselves. They had some great spots. They told a great story. Johnny Gargano, as we found out later, took out Aleister Black in storyline so he could have Tommaso Ciampa on himself, and he could be the one to take the title from Tommaso Ciampa, in which he was unable to do because it went from trying to win the title to getting revenge, and Johnny Gargano beat himself in this match and caused himself to lose it. And Tommaso Ciampa ended up winning this match in the end. Number 5 is Velveteen Dream versus Ricochet for the North American Championship. I believe this was NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4-2. It was Chicago. I get my takeovers mixed up. That's just how good these takeovers are. These two put on a hell of a match. You had Ricochet going up against Dream. Dream coming out as Hulk Hogan. He would do Hollywood Hogan at War Games, but this was his infatuation. He wore the Hulk Hogan stuff with a little nod to Prince Puma for Ricochet. Ricochet hitting this feud happened because Dream came out and it was like anything that Ricochet could do, Dream could do better. And they just built off of that, and these guys put on one hell of a match at NXT TakeOver. And Dream ended up losing to Ricochet, but in one hell of a match. It was one of the... Actually, I don't think this is for the North American Championship. This is before he won the North American title, if I'm correct. Dream versus Ricochet was at Chicago, wasn't it? But Dream and Ricochet put on probably one of the best matches I think I've seen out of Ricochet's career. I've only seen Ricochet wrestle since 2016. I saw him wrestle for the World Cup for World Culture Pro Wrestling last year. Everyone, of course, remembers his match against his infamous match with Will Ospreay at the Best of the Super Juniors in 2016. These guys put on a great match, and it would be great to see, with him being North American Champion, to see these guys go at it again. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen because Ricochet is going to be probably losing that title to Johnny Gargano next year. Number 4 is Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa at NXT TakeOver Chicago in the Chicago Street Fight. This was the second of the trilogy, in which Johnny Gargano again tried to take... Johnny Gargano coming into this match said he was going to link Johnny, because as Johnny Gargano reminded us last year in NXT TakeOver Chicago, Tommaso Ciampa laid out Johnny Gargano and Johnny Gargano left on a stretcher. Tommaso Ciampa was on his way to leaving in a stretcher in this match, and Johnny Gargano refused to let that happen. And Johnny Gargano lost this match because he beat himself. He was too focused on dishing out pain to Tommaso Ciampa that when Ciampa, with his hands tied behind, like handcuffed behind his back, got up, DDT'd him onto the exposed wood, and that was that. And Johnny Gargano beat himself and allowed Tommaso Ciampa to pretty much be de facto number 1 contender to the NXT Championship, in which, of course, he ended up winning from Aleister Black. Number 3 is Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano, NXT TakeOver War Games. This match culminated because of what happened to Aleister Black before NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, in which he was found laid out in the parking lot a few days before TakeOver Brooklyn. We all wondered, who did it? There were talks of Cassius Ohno, talks of maybe Matt Riddle coming in and being the one to attack. Nobody saw Johnny Gargano coming. Johnny Gargano explained why he did it. He did it because because Aleister Black was in the way and he was just a casualty. It was nothing personal. This match was great. This match was like Johnny Gargano was during his time after this match was made official, spent his time in the classroom of wrestling, at home watching tapes of Aleister Black move for move, trying to know what he needed to do to keep Aleister Black from winning this match because he had him match move for move. But eventually, it all ends the same as it should, and that was a black mass by Aleister Black after he said he resolved Gargano of his sins. I believe he hit him with 2 black masses for both sins. That meaning he laid him out and then taking his time to let us know. Number 2 is Andrade Cien versus Johnny Gargano, NXT TakeOver Philadelphia. This was the night that I and everybody else was hoping and praying to see Johnny Gargano win the NXT Championship. That crowd in Philadelphia, that was the time to give him the title. Honestly, and I still say this, that was the night to give him the title. I don't care where the storyline goes from here. I don't care when we get to Brooklyn 5 or whatever they're calling it. If Johnny Gargano wins the championship, it doesn't matter where they do it. The crowd will not be as hot as this night. This was the night that Johnny Gargano should have became Johnny champion. Johnny Gargano should have became NXT champion. That would have been the night to do it, and it would have just been it was the perfect time. And WWE and Triple H did not strike when the iron was hot. I don't care what anyone says. You can fight all you want. This match was close to the match of the year for me for 2018. There is one more that is better, but the crowd. The only reason the biggest reason this match is so highly regarded, other than the guys in the ring, is that the crowd in Philadelphia were just so invested. They so were ready to, as soon as, if Johnny Gargano would have walked out as NXT champion on this night, the roof literally probably would have flew off the building. That's how crazy this crowd was. This crowd was so invested in this match. Every near fall, every time Johnny Gargano had almost his shoulders pinned, everyone was like, he's got it, and almost kicked out. As soon as the draping off the top rope DDT hit, 1, 2, 3, Gargano loses. We see him on the ramp and gets hit from behind by Tommaso Ciampa, who's making his return. It was all just the emotion. Like, I was coming out of that night, and I'm like, Gargano should have won the title. And I still, almost 365 days later, we're getting close to that. I still believe Johnny Gargano should have been NXT champion already. I think that even if he wins the title at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, or if he wins the title at all, it's just not going to be the same as it was that night. I will tell you that right now. Philadelphia was the perfect setting. It was the perfect time, and they missed the boat. Gargano winning the title still would be a feel-good moment, especially if his wife wins the Women's Championship at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn on the same night, and we have an Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit type moment where they're in the middle of the ring, they hug, and they have their championships. If that happens, it will still be a feel-good moment. It just won't feel the same as it still won't have that feel-good moment as it should have had the night of Philadelphia. And going number 1, Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa, unsanctioned NXT TakeOver New Orleans. This match was this match is what Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins should have been at TLC. This match was, we don't give a fuck, we're going to go out there and we're going to show you what we can do. These guys put on the best match I have ever seen. Gargano and Almas was coming out of TakeOver Philadelphia. Gargano and Almas had the world talking that they had the best match already. The match of the year was in the bag. Gargano and Ciampa were like, hold our beers, we're going to show you what match of the year looks like. This still has one of the sickest spots of the year, in which Johnny Gargano power bombs Tommaso Ciampa onto concrete. You see it, just hearing that replay and hearing that thud of Tommaso Ciampa's back hitting that concrete just still makes me squirm. It's still one of those like, ugh. Like it's still one of the sickest spots of the year, and I never want to see it again. But of course, if it happens again, it would still be something amazing. This match is something like if you want to see one match at NXT this year, you need to go back and see this match. You're probably wondering, where's all the women's matches for this year? Why didn't you put any women's matches on this top 10 list? Well, simply because there wasn't an Asuka versus Nikki Cross or Asuka versus Ember Moon type match this year. There just wasn't. Shayna Baszler, hell of a champion. Ember Moon was a good champion. Kairi Sane really didn't get to have a championship run. There really wasn't anything that just blew me out of the water when it came to the women of NXT. They had some good matches. Shayna Baszler has been improvement, but there just really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Right? It's like, wow, this is like match of the year candidate. Women, it was just one of those years. NXT's women's division took a hit when they lost Asuka last year. They took a hit when they lost Ember Moon this year. It's just there's nobody. I'm not saying Ember Moon versus Shayna Baszler 1 and 2 was a bad matches. They were good. Kairi Sane versus Shayna Baszler 1 and 2 and 3 were good. Just nothing on the women's side of NXT was blow your mind. Now Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler have a chance to start off 2019 on the right foot for NXT takeovers and NXT in general. We'll have to wait and see. Now, let's see. We have year-end awards coming for NXT this Wednesday, where we'll find out matches of the year, takeover of the year, and everything else. My takeover of the year for the year has got to be NXT Takeover New Orleans. Plain and simple. We had a six-man ladder match for the NXT North American Championship. Roderick Strong turned heel on Pete Dunne and joined the NXT Undisputed Era in retaining the tag team championships. You had Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa in an unsanctioned match in the main event. You had Aleister Black winning the NXT Championship, a title he really never needed. But that's 4 matches right there that just made this show by far the best NXT takeover of the year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was great matches in all NXT takeovers. You had Almas versus Gargano, Ember Moon versus Shayna Baszler. There was Ember Moon versus Shayna Baszler on this night as well. You had Tommaso Ciampa versus Velveteen Dream at War Games with Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black at War Games. You had Ricochet versus Pete versus. You had Aleister Black versus Adam Cole at the beginning of the year at Takeover Philadelphia, but just not anything seemed to match what you got at NXT Takeover New Orleans. You had 6 great matches. You had all these matches that were just great. The 6-man ladder match, the title match was good. The women's championship match was great. The unsanctioned match was excellent. It was just a great takeover all around. Takeover War Games was a good show. It was only 4 matches if you don't count that 6-second match at the beginning with Matt Riddle. It's just like Philadelphia, Chicago, Brooklyn, and War Games just could not match New Orleans, and that's my opinion. Now, NXT Superstar of the Year is by far Tommaso Ciampa. This guy who had a devastating knee injury last year after giving us a great match at NXT TakeOver Chicago with Johnny Gargano, turning on Johnny Gargano. And what if it wasn't for the injury? And this is the one thing. With 2017 and Tommaso Ciampa's knee injury, him missing the rest of 2017 and coming back this year to have an MVP year, who knows how the Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa storyline would have been had he not been injured, because that would have happened last year. We would have missed out on the unsanctioned match. We would have missed out on the last man standing match. It just feels like the Johnny Gargano Tommaso Ciampa feud was meant for 2018. Had Tommaso Ciampa not got injured, we would have got that last year, and I don't think it would have been as great of a feud. It would have still been probably a good feud, but not as great as this year. Feud of the year, of course, is Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano, 3 takeovers in a row, main eventing, putting on 3 stellar matches. I wish it would have been in reverse, where we had the last man standing, the street fight, and then the unsanctioned match, because that's how the quality went. It went from being the best match of the year to just starting to gradually fall as they went, but it was still the feud of the year. Women's Wrestler of the Year, Shayna Baszler, no doubt about that. She had a hell of a year compared to what she started doing in 2017. She was in the Mae Young Classic. She was second place in the Mae Young Classic, losing to Kairi Sane. she just looked like she was going to be just another bland superstar, but she has perfected being the nasty, cocky heel who just comes out here and does whatever the hell she wants. Let's see here. I like surprise of the year was the North American Championship introduction. Matt Riddle being brought in NXT, Keith Lee, War Raiders being introduced at the beginning of the year, EC3 making his NXT return. So much good in NXT this year. There's not much more else I can really say, but we are going to talk about 2019 now. 2018 in the books. NXT is done with 2018. This last episode, this past Wednesday, was the final episode of NXT. We do want to talk a little bit about news and rumors from NXT, as we do before we get into the predictions. We did have one news story that I skipped out of on yesterday's show because it dealt with NXT. Let me see if I can find it here. It should be right after the end. Yeah. Okay, there was backstage news on recent NXT call-ups. Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer, talked about the next wave of NXT call-ups to WWE and had a few interesting things to say about them. He reports that Triple H does not want any of the big NXT call-ups to fail because that reflects badly on him and the NXT brand. However, the next wave of announced NXT call-ups are not considered big names, so them flopping would not really be considered a failure to NXT. Lars Sullivan is the exception to this, as he is expected to be getting a very big opportunity to make a name for himself. So if he fails, it would be due to a lack of effort on his part. Interestingly, Kairi Sane and Io Shirai were also potential names that could have been called up, but many backstage officials felt that Vince McMahon would not know what to do with them and they would quickly get lost in the mix. An example of this is Asuka, already on the main roster and doing well. Vince would likely only want one Japanese female superstar at a time. Do you blame Triple H? Can you just look back at Triple H's proteges? Look at Finn Balor. They strapped the rocket to him. They had him beat Roman Reigns on his first night. Go into SummerSlam. Win the Universal Championship. And thanks to Seth Rollins doing a shitty buckle bomb in the corner, which I never want to see him do again. Not in the corner, but on the outside, which should not have been in the match whatsoever. He tears his shoulder up, has to relinquish the title, and goes nowhere. Kevin Owens wins the Universal Championship, but has a laughable title reign. Sami Zayn hasn't done anything. Sanity and Andrade Cien Almas haven't done anything. The Iconics have been nothing but comedy fodder. No Way Jose was nothing. No, nothing. Do you really think he wants to see an Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong, a Ricochet, a Pete Dunne, or any of these other guys come up? A Shayna Baszler, Shayna Baszler is not going to have a problem. She can come up after a takeover where she loses the title to Bianca Belair, in my opinion. But she can come up after the Royal Rumble or in the Royal Rumble, go to SmackDown where she's going to be going, and then she's Ronda Rousey's pal, so she's probably not going to be SmackDown Live Women's Champion, but she's definitely not going to be somebody who's going to fail because she is friends with Ronda Rousey, and with WWE wanting to make Ronda Rousey happy, she's definitely going to be one of those who's going to be safe. Nikki Cross, I can see doing something. Heavy Machinery is going to be broken up probably before the Royal Rumble, before WrestleMania. EC3 could possibly have some kind of luck. I mean, look at Elias and Braun Strowman. They didn't do much in NXT, but they have had some success in WWE. Lars Sullivan speaks for himself. He's going to have many, many opportunities just because of his size. But that is just not going to be. What do you expect? What do you expect is with having all these guys and girls come up? Asuka got buried for months and months and months. And it took everybody but Vince McMahon in the back to say, listen, she is special. Use her. Use her the right way. But that's that. That is like, why do you think Triple H is like, yeah, I don't want anyone else to fail because then it makes NXT look bad. But anytime somebody from NXT comes up, they're going to be made to look bad. Because Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon's cronies and Kevin Dunn and all those are going to sit there and do what they can to bury those guys because if they succeed, if the NXT crop succeed, then that makes them look bad. It's sad, and I can't wait till Triple H takes over so we can at least Because when Triple H takes over SmackDown and Raw, HBK is going to be running NXT. HBK is going to be the one manning that ship with his group. And it's going to be great because if we can get just a taste of NXT on the main roster, then Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live would be in a much better place. Now, let's get over to 2019 and what I hope to see in NXT. The Undisputed Era is one thing that we were going to talk about because Adam Cole did say that all of Undisputed Era is going to be draped in gold by the end of 2019. But my question is, will it be NXT gold? Because there is a possibility that the NXT gold does not come to them. They could end up going up to the main roster. Will we see NXT's Undisputed Era become the ones who win the NXT Championship and the North American Championship at being Bobby Fish and Adam Cole? Now, Ricochet versus Johnny Gargano looked like it might be the match at NXT TakeOver Phoenix. Maybe we can get Bobby Fish thrown in there for a triple threat match, in which Bobby Fish ends up winning the NXT North American Championship, looking like Adam Cole's prediction is going to come to fruition. And then, of course, Johnny Gargano wins the NXT Championship at TakeOver Brooklyn 5, and then loses it to Adam Cole at the next TakeOver. Johnny Gargano winning the NXT Championship is going to be a feel-good moment, but he's not going to have a lengthy title reign like Tommaso Ciampa has right now. NXT, as I did in my top 10 here, there was no women matches on the top 10. For the simple fact is, none of them just wowed this year. In 2019, I expect somebody, whether it be that first match at TakeOver Brooklyn, TakeOver Phoenix, or whichever, I expect somebody a match for the women for NXT next year to be a match of the year candidate. It's just they had an off year this year. Last year you had Asuka in 2017 for the majority of the year, having matches with Nikki Cross, Ember Moon, and even the Iconics and others. She helped carry NXT to where it was at. This was an off year, and that's fine. You're allowed to have off years. Next year I expect the women to bring it back to where you see a match of the year or two from the women. 2019, I hope we could see maybe with a War Games match, we could see maybe NXT UK versus NXT main NXT. So you have a NXT. We could have. I expect to see, and I hope to see it. I'm predicting maybe with NXT UK getting on the ground and getting off the ground as bad as it has, that maybe towards the end of the year we could have an NXT versus NXT UK type show where you would have NXT the War Games, NXT TakeOver War Games would be NXT versus NXT UK. You would have matches of NXT and NXT UK matches. You would have the War Games match be a 5-on-5, 5 from NXT, 5 from NXT UK, and they would battle each other in the War Games match. Unfortunately, my other prediction is anybody else who gets caught up from NXT will be buried on the main roster, and we will see an influx of more talent coming to NXT. Maybe Matt Riddle gets put in the NXT title picture. Maybe him and Keith Lee, who in a backstage segment were they seem like they're really good buddies. Maybe they could be maybe they could team up and become a tag team, and maybe they could win the tag team championships. Who knows? But I see big things happening for Matt Riddle in 2019. I honestly don't think Matt Riddle should be in NXT past the 6-month mark. He should be up in the main roster by WrestleMania time. Just saying. And finally, I expect and I'm predicting this, and I've been predicting this for a while. I predict Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae will be NXT and NXT Women's Champions coming out of NXT Brooklyn 5. It just feels like what we're gonna build to is that Candice is going to end up beating Bianca Belair for the championship, being the first person to beat Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair is not going to lose a match until she loses the NXT Championship, and we're not going to have an Asuka feeling or an Asuka type build for Bianca Belair. But when she loses her championship, because she's going to beat Shayna Baszler, at least I think she is, we're going to have Candice LeRae win the title at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 5 or whatever they're calling it, New York, whatever. And Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa 4 is going to be the final match between these two in NXT at TakeOver WrestleMania weekend, in which Johnny Gargano finally beats Tommaso Ciampa in whatever. It's going to have to be a stipulation match. You're not just going to have a traditional match between these two, but you're going to have these two go out there and put on one hell of a match. It'll feel great because we haven't seen it since Brooklyn 4. And Johnny Gargano, at the end of the night, Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, as champions, as the first husband-wife champions in NXT history, are going to embrace in the middle of the ring, and we'll have an Eddie Guerrero-Chris Benoit type feeling, ending to NXT TakeOver in WrestleMania weekend. That is my NXT TakeOver, my NXT review for 2018. It was one hell of a year. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody who watched these videos. Hit that subscribe button, comment down below, like or dislike this video. Let me know your top 5 or 10 matches for NXT this year, and what do you think will happen in 2019. I expect a lot more of this. I expect a lot more good, and we will have to wait and see. We are only a few short days away. We're only actually 2 short days away from when you guys will see this. But until then, I will see you guys in the new year. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday. Thank you again. Thank you. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at TheFrance. Follow me on twitch.tv/TheFrance08. And I will see you guys in 2019. Until then, my name is TheFrance, and you guys have a good one.